The research station Aurelia 9 floated silently above the frozen exoplanet Arendor 4. Its gleaming metal towers caught the faint blue light of the planet below, and the hum of machinery filled every corridor. Life on the station moved in a rhythm dictated by maintenance cycles, experiments, and orbital adjustments. Among the crew, most had learned to adapt to the cold efficiency of space, but one person moved differently than the rest. Captain Lyra Tay was brilliant, known across interstellar research networks as a xenolinguist, capable of deciphering alien codes and understanding species no one else could. Yet, despite her fame, she preferred silence. She ate alone, worked alone, and often floated through the corridors without speaking. The other crew members respected her talent, though some found her distant, even intimidating. They knew she could solve problems faster than anyone. Yet no one had ever really shared a conversation with her. Lyra did not mind. Her life had always been a series of calculations, observations, and careful strategies. Words, she believed, often distracted from the real work. She preferred the quiet company of the stars and the low hum of the station's systems. She enjoyed watching the blinking lights on consoles and listening to the whir of machines, the rhythms of their operations soothing her mind. The crew called her reserved. She called it focus. One morning, Lyra sat at the edge of the common room, her tray of food untouched. The other crew members gathered in small groups, talking and laughing about Earth broadcasts, past missions, and plans for leave. She looked at them with mild curiosity but remained silent. No one sat beside her. No one wanted to. Sitting next to Lyra meant entering a world of unspoken rules, a place where conversation was awkward and every word weighed heavily. She noticed, and she did not mind. Then, a new crew member arrived. Ethan Cole, a human engineer, stepped onto the station with calm confidence. He had worked on numerous stations across the galaxy, known for solving mechanical crises and keeping ships running under impossible conditions. His reputation preceded him, but unlike others, he did not stare at Lyra in awe. He did not approach her with hesitation or fear. He simply moved through the station, observing, understanding, and quietly doing what needed to be done. The first time Lyra noticed him, she was in the engineering bay, recalibrating a sensor array. Sparks flew from a connector, and her glove barely managed to shield her hand. Ethan appeared at the doorway, tools in hand. Without speaking, he knelt beside the panel, adjusting wiring and replacing a malfunctioning circuit. Lyra watched in silence, her fingers hovering over her controls. When he finished, he stood and simply walked away. No fanfare, no recognition. It was strange. No one else had ever helped her without asking questions or making comments. Some tried to impress her with technical knowledge, but Ethan did not. He noticed the problem, fixed it, and left. The station felt slightly warmer after that, though nothing had changed. Days passed, and Ethan's silent presence became noticeable. He moved through the ship, fixing small problems she had not noticed. Sometimes, he entered the common room, carrying tools or logs, and sat on the bench beside her without a word. She did not react at first, unsure whether to be annoyed or curious. But slowly, she realized she no longer felt the same tension she usually felt around people. He did not ask why she sat alone. He did not comment on her food or her quiet demeanor. He simply existed in the same space, letting her work, letting her think. It was a new experience for Lyra. She had spent years observing alien species, learning to read gestures, expressions, and tones. She understood subtle communication better than most humans. Yet Ethan's silence communicated something she had not seen before. Respect without expectation. Companionship without intrusion. She found herself looking forward to these silent moments, though she could not explain why. One evening, the station's alarms chimed softly, signaling a minor power fluctuation. Lyra moved quickly, tracing the anomaly to the hydroponics module. She reached for the control panel, ready to make adjustments, when she felt a calm presence behind her. Ethan had silently approached, his hands hovering over the same controls. Without a word, he helped her adjust the settings, distributing energy to balance the system. When the lights stabilized, he simply nodded and moved on, leaving her with a sense of ease she had not expected. The other crew members noticed the change. They whispered in small groups, questioning why Ethan, a new arrival, seemed so at ease around the reserved Captain Tay. Some joked that he had broken the ice in a way no one else could. Lyra did not care about gossip. She only noticed that, when he was around, the station felt less lonely, the cold metal walls less oppressive, and her thoughts clearer. Life continued in its routine, but small shifts occurred in Lyra's behavior. She began to eat more consistently, noticing that Ethan sometimes sat beside her, sometimes across, never speaking but always present. She no longer felt the weight of her solitude pressing on her chest. Even during long hours of work, when translating alien texts or analyzing data, she sensed a quiet support, as if someone was silently guarding her focus. One morning, as the blue light of Arendor 4 filtered through the station windows, a message arrived from Earth Command. The words were simple but urgent. Anomaly detected near planetary orbit. Immediate analysis required. The station buzzed with activity. Consoles flashed, lights blinked rapidly, and crew members hurried to their stations. Lyra felt her pulse quicken, her mind shifting into high gear. Ethan appeared beside her, silently scanning the data streams. His eyes were calm, steady, and focused. He did not speak, but his presence gave her confidence. She realized that, for the first time in years, she did not feel alone in facing the unknown. Together, though unspoken, they began coordinating. She interpreted the anomaly's readings while he adjusted systems, balancing power and stabilizing controls. Words were unnecessary. Each understood the other's intent through action and attention alone. The rest of the crew watched in amazement. They had seen Lyra handle crises before, but never with such fluid coordination. Ethan did not overshadow her. He enhanced her ability, making her work more precise, more controlled. Lyra noticed the simplicity of his approach. No judgment, no assumptions, just presence. It was a rare and powerful thing. As the day continued, Lyra realized a truth she had long ignored. Knowledge alone was not enough in the vastness of space. Companionship, even silent and unspoken, could provide clarity and strength beyond calculation. Ethan's quiet assistance allowed her to think faster, analyze deeper, and act with confidence she had not felt in years. She was not weak for relying on him. She was stronger because of it. By the end of the day, the anomaly had passed without incident. The crew celebrated, praising Lyra's leadership and Ethan's technical skill. But Lyra's satisfaction was quiet and internal. She did not need recognition. She only knew that she had discovered something more valuable than a successful mission. The presence of someone who understood her without demanding explanations, who could stand beside her without challenging her space, and who could be relied upon without words. That evening, as the station lights dimmed and the crew retired, Lyra found herself in the common room once more. Ethan appeared, carrying a small data pad, and sat beside her. He did not speak. He simply handed her the pad, showing the latest sensor readings, and smiled faintly. Lyra allowed herself a small smile in return, the first genuine one she had shared in months. She realized then that perhaps isolation was not the only way to survive among the stars. Perhaps, sometimes, connection came not from conversation, but from silent understanding, from shared purpose, and from the simple act of being present beside someone. Lyra did not yet know what the future held. The anomaly was only the first of many challenges they would face together. But she knew one thing. As long as he sat beside her, without a word, she would not be truly alone. And for the first time in a long while, Lyra felt a warmth she had thought impossible in the cold depths of space. She was brilliant. She was capable. But she was also human. And humans, she realized, had a quiet strength all their own. The morning on Aurelia 9 began with a soft blue glow reflecting off the icy surface of Arendor 4. The station seemed calm, almost peaceful. But beneath the surface, the hum of systems and blinking lights carried a tension no one could ignore. The anomaly from the previous day had passed, but its presence lingered in the minds of the crew. Scientists whispered about energy surges and unknown signals, while engineers checked every panel, every wire, ensuring nothing had been damaged. Lirate moved through the corridors, carrying her tablet with updated readings. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the data for any irregularities. She felt a sense of renewed focus since Ethan had arrived. His quiet presence had created a rhythm she hadn't realized she needed. She no longer felt the weight of isolation pressing on her thoughts. Something as simple as someone silently standing beside her made her calculations clearer, her judgments faster. Ethan appeared in the engineering bay, as usual, already at work on minor system adjustments. Lyra paused for a moment, observing him. He moved with precision, hands steady, eyes focused, adjusting circuits and monitoring energy flows. There was no unnecessary conversation, no demonstration of skill. He simply worked. His calm efficiency had a strange effect on her mind. She felt less hurried, less distracted, as if the station itself had slowed its pace just for her to think. The first critical task of the day involved analyzing signals from the anomaly. Lyra had spent hours decoding the energy patterns, trying to understand the source and purpose of the strange wave. It seemed to react to the planet's magnetic field in ways no human or AI system had encountered before. Most of the crew glanced at her readings and shook their heads. Only Ethan stood beside her, silently following her instructions, adjusting consoles when needed, and ensuring the system responded exactly as she intended. Hours passed with no word exchanged between them. Other crew members noticed the unusual silence, some mistaking it for tension. Yet for Lyra, it was something entirely different. She felt a growing sense of trust, a reliance on a presence that neither judged nor questioned her. She realized that true partnership did not require words. The anomaly was complex, dangerous even, but the quiet coordination between her mind and Ethan's hands made the task manageable. By mid-afternoon, Lyra had mapped the energy pattern with surprising clarity. The anomaly was not random. It had a structure, a rhythm, and a purpose. It pulsed with energy that resembled an intelligent signal, though its origin remained unknown. The station's AI suggested containment strategies, but none accounted for the unique fluctuations she observed. "Ethan," she finally said, breaking the silence, "I need the secondary energy regulators recalibrated. The pulse might overload the systems if we attempt containment without balance." Ethan nodded, a small motion, and began adjusting the regulators. His movements were deliberate, almost synchronizing with hers. He did not ask questions, did not second-guess her decisions. He simply acted in accordance with her calculations, following her lead while subtly improving the system's stability. The rest of the crew looked on with curiosity. They had never seen Lyra operate like this, fully confident and deeply focused, her mind sharp, her hands steady, and her commands clear. The quiet engineer at her side amplified her abilities, creating a partnership that neither needed words to validate. As the hours went by, the anomaly's activity increased. The station shuddered occasionally as energy waves brushed past its orbit, causing minor disruptions. Lights flickered, and alarms chimed softly, warning of overloads. Lyra's hands moved quickly over the console, analyzing the pulses, predicting the next surge. Ethan was there, adjusting energy flows, rerouting circuits, and preventing damage with a steady efficiency that left the rest of the crew in awe. In the control room, a senior officer whispered, "I've never seen the captain operate like this, and he doesn't speak a word. Yet she seems calmer than ever." Another nodded, recognizing the unusual dynamic. The day wore on, and Lyra's understanding of the anomaly deepened. She discovered a pattern, an approaching cycle of energy peaks that could, if left unchecked, destabilize the station. The readings were delicate, the margin for error minimal. She looked at Ethan, who was monitoring the system silently, and realized how much she relied on him. She did not need to explain her calculations. His hands and actions understood her logic without a single word exchanged. Later, the anomaly intensified. A surge of energy struck the station, sending a wave through the hull. Alarms screamed, lights blinked rapidly, and the crew scrambled. Lyra's mind raced, calculating trajectories, predicting outcomes, and planning interventions. Beside her, Ethan moved seamlessly, adjusting energy flows, reinforcing power grids, and stabilizing critical systems. The unspoken rhythm between them allowed her to think clearly, make decisions quickly, and direct the crew effectively. "Divert power to the stabilizers," she commanded, her voice calm but firm. Ethan's hands moved instantly, redirecting energy through the complex network of regulators. The station groaned as the surge passed, but damage was minimal. Lyra felt a surge of relief, not because the crisis had ended, but because the silent partnership beside her had made the difference. By evening, the anomaly had begun to fade, its energy pulses weakening as it drifted further from the planet. The crew, exhausted but safe, gathered to review the day's events. Lyra's report was thorough, her conclusions precise, and the solutions implemented under Ethan's quiet assistance had prevented disaster. After the meeting, Lyra returned to the common room. The day's intensity had left her tired, her mind racing even as her body demanded rest. She sat at her usual spot, expecting the familiar solitude. Instead, Ethan appeared, quietly taking the seat beside her. He did not speak. He did not offer commentary or congratulations. He simply sat, a steady presence in the soft glow of the station's lights. Lyra looked at him, a faint smile forming on her lips. For the first time, she realized that companionship could be silent, that understanding could exist without constant explanation, and that trust could be built not just through words, but through presence and action. "You helped more than I realized," she finally said, her voice soft. Ethan nodded, acknowledging her words without comment. That small gesture, simple and quiet, carried more weight than any elaborate conversation. It spoke of respect, patience, and the kind of understanding that only formed through shared challenges. The next few days passed in a similar rhythm. Lyra continued her analysis of the anomaly's data, refining predictions and adjusting containment protocols. Ethan moved beside her, ensuring systems remained stable, repairing minor malfunctions, and silently supporting her focus. Other crew members observed the pattern and began to understand the strength of this quiet partnership. It was not flashy, nor loud, nor easily measured, yet its impact was undeniable. Lyra noticed other changes within herself. She no longer felt the pressure of isolation. She laughed quietly at jokes made by crew members, engaged in brief conversations, and allowed herself moments of relaxation she had long avoided. Ethan's presence, steady and unobtrusive, had created a space where she could be herself, without fear of misunderstanding or judgment. One morning, as Lyra reviewed the anomaly's latest readings, she noticed something unusual. The energy pulses were no longer random, but began to align in patterns that suggested intelligence. Symbols emerged, fleeting but distinct, like a language waiting to be deciphered. Excitement surged through her. This was more than a natural phenomenon. This was communication. She looked at Ethan, who was monitoring the station's power grid, and realized that with his silent support, she could focus on decoding these signals without distraction. She began to work feverishly, cross-referencing alien databases, analyzing waveforms, and constructing potential meanings. Ethan moved beside her, adjusting systems, ensuring her equipment functioned flawlessly, and preventing any interruptions. Hours passed without words. Yet every movement, every glance, every adjustment created a shared understanding. The rest of the crew eventually left her to it, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. Lyra and Ethan continued their silent collaboration late into the night. When a breakthrough finally came, it was quiet but profound. She decoded the first complete sequence of symbols, revealing a simple but remarkable message. "We observe. We learn. Approach with caution." Lyra leaned back, a sense of wonder and relief washing over her. For the first time in her career, She felt that the universe had reached out to humanity in a deliberate way, and that she was part of that first contact. She looked at Ethan, still silently beside her, and realized that without him, she might have missed this opportunity. His quiet presence had allowed her to focus, to think, and to achieve something truly remarkable. As she processed the message, she felt something else. Something unexpected. Gratitude. Yes, but also a deep recognition of human strength in companionship, in silent support, and in shared purpose. Ethan had not sought praise. He had not claimed credit. He had simply been there. And that simple act, in the vast emptiness of space, had changed everything. The next morning, the station was tense, but alive with purpose. Lyra Tay moved through the corridors of Aurelia 9 with renewed determination. The anomaly they had encountered was no longer just a curious energy pattern. It now displayed clear signs of intelligence. Symbols pulsed rhythmically, aligning in sequences that suggested intention. For a mind trained in xenolinguistics, it was both exciting and terrifying. One mistake could trigger unpredictable consequences. Ethan moved beside her as always, quietly monitoring systems, adjusting power outputs, and ensuring that Lyra's work went uninterrupted. His presence had become a constant in her life, an anchor in the chaos of scientific discovery and looming danger. She no longer felt the isolation she had always carried. Each glance at him reminded her that even in the vast emptiness of space, she was not alone. The rest of the crew began to notice that the anomaly's pulses were intensifying. Sensors showed fluctuations that could disrupt the station's energy grids. Engineers scrambled to stabilize systems. But Lyra and Ethan worked with an almost invisible rhythm. Words were minimal, exchanged only when absolutely necessary. Lyra would give a brief instruction, and Ethan's hands would move instantly to implement it. Every adjustment was precise, every action synchronized. Together, they formed a silent, efficient team, capable of handling crises that might have overwhelmed the rest of the crew. By mid-morning, the anomaly's energy began to surge violently. The station shuddered under the force of the waves. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and minor systems failed one by one. Crew members panicked, unsure how to respond. Lyra, however, felt a strange calm. She knew she had the knowledge to predict the anomaly's next move. She also knew that Ethan's steady presence beside her meant that her calculations could be executed perfectly, without error. She turned to him. Divert all excess power to the primary stabilizers. We cannot afford a system failure now. Ethan nodded silently, his hands moving over the console with precision. Power flowed through conduits he had reinforced hours before, preventing overloads and stabilizing critical systems. The station trembled, but the pair worked seamlessly, adjusting energy flows and predicting the anomaly's next pulse. The anomaly surged again, stronger this time. Lyra's eyes scanned the readings, her mind racing through countless possibilities. She realized that the energy wave was not only intelligent, but reactive. It seemed to respond to their attempts at stabilization, testing the station's systems, and perhaps even evaluating their actions. Ethan, synchronize the secondary regulators with my calculations. We must counterbalance the next pulse exactly. He moved without hesitation, adjusting the energy network to match her predictions. Their silent coordination was perfect. Lyra's confidence grew as she noticed how effortlessly they adapted to each new challenge the anomaly presented. She realized that her strength alone would not have been enough. Ethan's quiet support had transformed her abilities, allowing her to react faster, think clearer, and act with precision. Outside the station, the anomaly's energy waves collided with the planetary magnetic field, sending brilliant streaks of light across the atmosphere. Sensors recorded unusual readings, particles interacting in ways previously unknown to human science. The crew watched in awe, some from the observation deck, while others continued to monitor critical systems. Despite the beauty, Lyra remained focused. She knew the anomaly could still destroy the station, if not handled correctly. Hours passed with tension building. Lyra's concentration never wavered, and Ethan remained a silent but vital partner. They adjusted power outputs, rerouted circuits, and recalibrated sensors. Each decision was calculated, each action precise. Slowly, they began to understand the anomaly's behavior. It was not malicious. It was curious, probing, and intelligent. But unpredictably so. One misstep could trigger an energy spike strong enough to tear apart the station. By late afternoon, Lyra and Ethan had developed a strategy. They would create a containment field using the station's energy grid, synchronized to the anomaly's pulses. This required perfect timing and flawless execution. Any error, however small, could have catastrophic consequences. The crew watched as Lyra prepared the controls. Her hands moved with speed and certainty, inputting sequences that calculated the anomaly's next energy peaks. Ethan stood beside her, monitoring the circuits, ensuring the field would activate without failure. For the first time, they were not merely reacting, they were guiding the outcome. The first attempt to contain the anomaly was tense. Energy pulsed violently through the station. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the hull vibrated under the pressure. Lyra's calculations were precise, but the anomaly shifted unexpectedly. She adjusted, rebalancing energy flows with speed, while Ethan mirrored her actions, rerouting power and reinforcing stabilizers. Together, they managed to maintain the containment field, preventing disaster. The crew exhaled collectively. But Lyra did not relax. She studied the anomaly, noting its reaction to the containment field. It seemed to pulse with a new rhythm, almost as if acknowledging their success. She realized they were communicating, in a sense. The anomaly tested them, and they had responded perfectly. "Ethan," she said quietly, "we need to maintain this for at least 3 cycles. Any fluctuation now could destabilize the field." He nodded, moving to adjust the secondary circuits. The station trembled as the energy waves continued. But Lyra's strategy held. Each pulse was analyzed, countered, and contained. The anomaly was not defeated. It was understood, in part, through careful observation and coordinated action. Hours passed like this, time blurring in a rhythm of pulses, adjustments, and silent coordination. Lyra and Ethan did not speak much, but their actions communicated more than words ever could. Each understood the other's intentions, anticipating moves, and completing tasks in perfect synchronization. The crew marveled at the partnership, witnessing a bond forged not through conversation but through trust and shared purpose. As the final cycle approached, the anomaly's pulses began to weaken. Its energy became less volatile, more predictable. Lyra and Ethan continued their adjustments, ensuring the containment field remained stable. The tension in the station eased slightly, though caution remained. They could not celebrate until the anomaly fully subsided. Finally, the last pulse passed. The station remained intact, its systems stable, and the anomaly drifted further into space, leaving behind only faint energy traces. Lyra allowed herself a moment to breathe. A rare pause after hours of intense focus. Ethan stood beside her, as always, silent but unwavering. The rest of the crew cheered, expressing relief and admiration. Lyra, however, only looked at Ethan. No words were necessary. She understood what his presence had meant, the calm support that had allowed her to think clearly, the silent partnership that had saved the station, and the unspoken trust that had guided every decision. That evening, as the crew began post-crisis assessments, Lyra returned to the common room. She carried her tablet with updated readings and notes, but her mind was already reflecting on what had just occurred. She sat in her usual spot, and, as if by habit, Ethan joined her. He did not speak, did not comment on the events of the day. He simply sat beside her, a steady presence in the soft hum of the station. Lyra glanced at him, her expression softening. "We managed it," she said quietly. Ethan nodded, his eyes calm, his hands resting on his knees. No further words were exchanged, yet she felt understood. He did not need to speak to acknowledge her brilliance or her decisions. His presence alone validated her choices and supported her focus. Over the next few days, The station returned to routine, but the anomaly had left its mark. Energy readings continued, and scientists debated its origin, intent, and composition. Lyra focused on decoding the remaining sequences of symbols, while Ethan ensured the station's systems remained flawless. They worked side by side, their silent communication continuing to grow stronger. Other crew members began to notice changes in Lyra. She smiled more frequently, laughed quietly at small jokes, and even engaged in short conversations with colleagues. Yet she reserved her deepest focus for her work and for the quiet engineer who had proven invaluable in the station's greatest crisis. Lyra realized something profound. Intelligence alone was not enough to survive in the vastness of space. Partnership, trust, and quiet support were equally important. Humans, with their ability to act without words and understand without explanation, brought a unique strength to the universe. Ethan had demonstrated that strength, and in doing so, had changed her understanding of companionship forever. That night, as the station lights dimmed and the crew rested, Lyra and Ethan remained in the common room. She looked at him, a soft sense of gratitude filling her heart. Words were unnecessary. Their shared experience had spoken volumes. She understood, fully, that their silent collaboration had not only saved the station, but had also forged a connection deeper than any conversation could achieve. As the stars glittered beyond the station's windows, Lyra allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She was brilliant, capable, and resourceful. But she was not alone. She had discovered that true strength often lay in quiet presence, unspoken understanding, and unwavering support. And in that realization, she found a sense of peace she had never known before. The days after the anomaly had passed carried a quiet intensity aboard Aurelia 9. Life had returned to routine, yet the memory of the event lingered in every corridor, in the hum of the machinery, and in the eyes of the crew. Scientists reviewed logs, engineers checked panels, and Lyra Tay returned to her studies with a renewed sense of purpose. The anomaly had been contained, but its presence hinted at a larger intelligence beyond human understanding, a mystery that demanded attention, patience, and respect. Lyra moved through the observation deck, scanning data streams and star charts. Her fingers traced patterns of energy left behind by the anomaly. They were subtle, delicate traces, almost imperceptible to anyone without her training. Yet they suggested thought, design, and an intelligence that was neither human nor alien in any familiar sense. She felt a thrill that was tempered by caution. Understanding this entity required careful study. One wrong assumption could provoke unexpected consequences. Ethan moved silently into the deck, his eyes taking in the readings alongside hers. He did not speak, yet his presence provided the clarity she needed. The previous days had taught her the value of his silent support. She could focus on intricate calculations without distraction, confident that he would maintain the station's stability, notice any anomaly in systems, and react swiftly. In his quiet way, he amplified her abilities, turning her intelligence into action with precision. Over the next several days, Lyra and Ethan worked tirelessly to decode the remaining sequences of the anomaly's signals. They were not random. They contained patterns that repeated and evolved, suggesting a system of communication. Lyra hypothesized that the anomaly was attempting to understand them, perhaps even testing humanity's ability to respond responsibly. Her excitement grew, but she remained cautious, aware of the risks. At one point, a subtle energy wave passed through the station, slightly stronger than before. Other crew members flinched at the alarms, but Lyra and Ethan remained composed. She adjusted readings while he ensured the stabilizers could handle the unexpected surge. Without a word, they executed their plan flawlessly. When the energy subsided, Lyra allowed herself a small smile. The silent teamwork she shared with Ethan had become a dance of understanding, trust, and efficiency. The anomaly's signals gradually formed a recognizable pattern. Lyra noticed repetitions, variations, and a rhythm that suggested logic and intent. It was as if the entity were speaking in a language of energy, testing their ability to observe, predict, and respond. She presented her findings to the crew, but her focus was always drawn back to Ethan, whose quiet presence had allowed her to reach insights no one else could achieve. One evening, Lyra lingered in the observation deck, reviewing a particularly complex sequence. The anomaly's pulse had shifted subtly, almost as if acknowledging her progress. She felt a mix of exhilaration and humility. Understanding this intelligence required patience, careful reasoning, and above all, collaboration. Her mind raced with possibilities, yet she did not feel overwhelmed. With Ethan silently beside her, she knew she could navigate the unknown safely. As days turned into weeks, Lyra and Ethan's partnership deepened. The rest of the crew noticed that the captain laughed more, smiled more, and engaged with them without hesitation. They still marveled at the silent dynamic between Lyra and Ethan. Unlike other partnerships, theirs required no conversation, no explanations, only trust and shared purpose. It was a rare and extraordinary bond, forged in the pressure of crisis and solidified through calm cooperation. Lyra began to realize another truth. Survival in space was not only about intellect or skill. It was about connection, about understanding others without needing constant communication, and about support that went beyond words. Humans, she reflected, had a unique ability to act with empathy, insight, and patience. Ethan embodied all of these qualities. His quiet assistance had transformed her work, allowed her brilliance to flourish, and protected the station when the unknown threatened them. One morning, as the station orbited over the bright, icy surface of Arendor 4, Lyra observed the anomaly's last significant pulse. The energy patterns were complex, yet she saw a coherence that had been absent before. It was a form of recognition. The entity seemed to respond to their patience, their care, and their restraint. They had not tried to dominate, force, or control it. They had observed, analyzed, and respected it. And in return, the anomaly had acknowledged their intelligence and responsibility. Lyra turned to Ethan, who was adjusting secondary stabilizers silently. "We did it," she said softly. He nodded, his eyes calm. No words were needed beyond that gesture. In his presence, she felt an understanding that transcended speech. It was a connection built on trust, competence, and quiet companionship. For the first time in her career, she realized that brilliance was best supported by collaboration, not solitude. The anomaly's last pulse faded into the darkness of space. Its intelligence had not been destroyed, nor subdued. It had communicated, tested, and moved on, leaving humanity with knowledge, experience, and insight into a universe far more complex than they had imagined. The crew cheered and celebrated, but Lyra's focus remained inward, reflecting on the lessons learned, both scientific and personal. She thought of how she had spent so many years alone, even in the presence of others. Her skills had been formidable, her mind sharp, yet she had underestimated the power of silent understanding, the value of partnership without words, and the strength found in calm companionship. Ethan had shown her that connection could exist without conversation, and that the simplest presence could carry the weight of trust, support, and courage. Over the following days, Lyra continued to analyze the anomaly's data, refining her notes and preparing reports for Earth Command. Ethan worked beside her as always, ensuring the station remained stable and secure. The anomaly had left traces, subtle and complex, offering opportunities for further study. Yet Lyra knew that the true lesson lay not only in the data but in the way humans could face the unknown together, combining intelligence, patience, and quiet support. One afternoon, she walked through the station's corridors, observing her crew at work. They moved with renewed confidence, inspired by the successful handling of the anomaly. The engineers adjusted systems efficiently, the scientists recorded new observations, and the communication teams documented every detail. The station hummed with purpose, alive with the energy of discovery. Lyra felt a quiet pride, but her thoughts returned to Ethan, whose presence had been central to this success. She found him in the observation deck, monitoring the final readings of the anomaly. He glanced at her, a subtle smile on his face, and returned to his work. She sat beside him, the silence comfortable, familiar, and powerful. It was in this quiet companionship that Lyra felt a sense of peace she had not known in years. The universe was vast, full of unknowns. Yet with trust and understanding, even the most formidable challenges could be met. The days passed, and the station prepared for the next mission, studying other celestial phenomena. Yet the anomaly had changed everything. Humanity's understanding of intelligence, communication, and connection had grown, not only through the data but through the partnership forged between a brilliant xenolinguist and a human engineer. Together, they had faced the unknown, preserved life, and discovered that collaboration often spoke louder than words. Lyra reflected on how humans, with their empathy, resilience, and quiet strength, had a unique role in the galaxy. They were capable of seeing beyond the immediate, understanding subtle cues, and supporting each other in ways that transcended spoken language. Ethan's presence had demonstrated this truth every day. He had acted without ego, without interruption, and without expectation. Yet his impact had been immeasurable. As Aurelia 9 orbited silently above the icy planet, Lyra and Ethan sat together, watching the faint glimmers of distant stars through the observation deck's windows. No words were exchanged. There was no need. Their shared experiences, the trust developed in the face of danger, and the quiet understanding between them spoke more clearly than any conversation ever could. Lyra allowed herself a rare smile, her mind at ease for the first time in years. She knew that brilliance and intelligence were important, but that true strength often lay in the subtle, quiet support of another. Humans, she realized, had a unique gift: the ability to stand beside each other, understand each other without words, and face the unknown together. The station remained calm, the anomaly gone, and the universe vast and mysterious. Lyra felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would continue her studies, explore the unknown, and push the boundaries of human understanding. But she would never again underestimate the power of connection, the value of presence, and the quiet strength of those who worked alongside her, without needing recognition or praise. In the end, it was not just the anomaly that had been observed, understood, and recorded. Humanity had also learned an invaluable lesson about partnership, trust, and the strength found in quiet companionship. Lyra and Ethan had faced the unknown together, not as individuals, but as a team, and in that silent, unspoken collaboration, they had discovered something extraordinary not only about the universe, but about themselves. As the stars twinkled beyond the station's windows, Lyra and Ethan remained side by side, observing, thinking, and sharing a bond that needed no words. In the vast emptiness of space, their quiet companionship was enough. It was a reminder that even in isolation, humans could find connection, strength, and understanding without a single word spoken. The universe stretched endlessly before them, full of mysteries yet to uncover. And as they sat together, Lyra realized that whatever challenges awaited, they would face them with the same quiet determination, trust, and shared purpose that had brought them through the anomaly. Together, they were stronger than they could ever be alone.